If we have the power to distribute the compute, why do we need the data centers?
Good question. To be fair, even data centers at the moment are not the one we are exploiting in many AI cases. We are exploiting a couple of cloud providers. There are many private data centers that they are also in the same boat as the end users. But in terms of coming back to your question, the smaller the data center is from the overhead, the lower the overhead will be.
Hey, Weirdo, welcome back to the Weird Canadian, the place where enterprise meets authenticity and innovation meets challenges convention. I'm your host, Cody Johnston, and today we're diving headfirst into the future. Join me with Mori, the visionary behind the Heisenberg Network, a leading force behind decentralized, human-centered artificial intelligence. Mori isn't just theorizing about the future, he's actively shaping it, integrating blockchain and AI to empower communities and tackle ethical dilemmas head-on. Get ready, this conversation's about to change the way you think about AI, technology, and humanity itself. So let's get weird. Mori, take it away.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. A bit of intro about myself. I'm Mori. I'm the co-founder of Heisenberg Network. Heisenberg Network is basically a research-based project coming out of my research as a university professor. A bit of background about myself. I'm currently a Canada researcher in human-centered AI at TMU. And I joined university as a faculty since 2017. And also I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Waterloo, where the whole journey of Heisenberg Network started.
Yeah. That's really impressive, especially coming from Ontario. I miss all of the tech that I used to get to see on a daily basis out there. Can we go over some of the concepts here? So let's break down human-centered AI first. Let's go into what that means for our audience.
Sure. So I'm sure that the AI is not a stranger to your audience and to everyone around the world. AI is trying to do a tremendous service to the humanity, right? However, each technology has a dark side if you overlook the human aspects there. And that's not AI is not an exception. So human-centered AI basically and generally try to see that how you can consider the human value that we do care as a society, as the ecosystem, or as the owner of AI at some level, to what to feed to this AI and what to get from them, right? And if we don't consider these two components, of course, it can bring a lot of risks, dangers, and abuse of AI for society. So human-centered AI basically is to looking of human values in different components of AI systems to make sure that what we have at the end is aligned with what we do care as humans.
That makes a ton of sense. I really hope we build this. Everybody keeps on screaming that AI is going to take over the world and destroy everybody, but it's like, if we let it, it will. If we build it properly, it will not. It's all about the people building it right now and just making sure that they're in it for the good more than anything else. So let's break down how you got involved in Decentralized. Can we go into your decentralized background? Why decentralization?
Decentralization has a lot of meanings and a lot of triggers in my mind, but the first time that I got familiar with decentralization was during my PhD, where we were focusing on the decentralization of the compute, not from the perspective of decentralization of the power. Is more of to do the compute for AI more efficiently. Back in time, I was research fellow at IBM, and we were trying to see that how we can actually decentralize. So yeah, for the decentralization, I was working on the algorithmic aspect of machine learning, how we can, let's say, have the training of a model in a decentralized way. So we not only make it cheaper, we make it more efficient and more reliable in terms of the whole process. Then this decentralization on the compute was always in back of my mind, but 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the problem got more interesting from the new trend of AI, that AI was becoming more powerful, and then the question was bugging my mind is that how about the decentralization of the power, not just the compute? who's gonna make sure that this power or the accessibility is democratized, decentralized, and how we can make sure that it's not centralized by some entities from the power perspective. Then that's where we started doing some research on specifically having decentralization in the personalization layer. What do I mean with personalization? For example, when you go to Netflix, there are some videos, some movies being recommended to you based on what you watched or your activities, interaction there, and what Netflix algorithm decide to show you, right? If Netflix algorithm being playing as a devil's advocate, then it can recommend something relevant to you, but very dangerous, right? So then we're like, okay, if the personalization become decentralized, then there is no one single algorithm focusing on recommending what you want. It's going to be different algorithms, different point of view, and not one center of power for personalization. Then that project got more interesting. There were some other side research directions. Then it got to Heisenberg that, okay, you know what? Personalization is one component, compute is another one. All of them, they need decentralization. Let's do it. So that was how I kind of got involved in decentralization.
Makes a lot of sense. And you got into a lot of technical around personalization and node. So I want to get into like how this works. So for my audience, I know a little bit more about this, so I'm just going to try and break it down for them. Essentially, what we're talking about is the blockchain model, allowing people to run the compute on separate computers across the entire world to be able to handle the compute power of every AI request out there, as opposed to what's the monolithic approach right now, whereas everybody's running to find billions of dollars to build these giant monolithic databases and data centers for these AI, which kind of comes into a interesting question. If we have the power to distribute the compute, why do we need the data centers?
Good question. To be fair, even data centers at the moment are not the one we are exploiting in many AI cases. We are exploiting a couple of cloud providers. And there are many private data centers that they are also in the same boat as the end users. But in terms of, coming back to your question, the smaller the data center is from the overhead, the lower the overhead will be, right? But the problem is that when we want to do something big, let's say training an AI model, right? You need maybe thousands of compute units to do that, right? That means that you need to go for much, much bigger data centers, aka cloud, to do the job, right? But if somehow you can distribute the job over smaller data centers or even smaller compute units, what does that mean to us? It means that we bring the overhead cost significantly down, right? And we can do the job. So I don't think data centers mainly are the concern for me. The concerns are much, much, much larger clouds handled by single entities, for example, AWS or I don't know, Azure or GCP, right? That's kind of the one part. And when we are talking about decentralization, actually data centers, the smaller data centers, also part of the pie. They are getting involved because they can provide the computes, and they are actually needed in many aspects of decentralized compute.
At least until we figure out how to reverse the power of algorithms so that we can consume less energy making these requests.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Can we go into like the key advantages of having a decentralized over actually key advantages and potential risks of decentralization? I think would probably be a better topic. Like, what by having it decentralized, isn't there more inherent risk to having end users being more malicious with your network?
That's actually a very good concern, and that's actually a valid concern. That I believe that comes part of the design of the protocol to leverage the computes. And just want to complete your question before I answer is that there are some concerns on the compute provider. Let's say I have a computer, I want to join a network, and network use my compute for an AI task, right? On the other hand, me as a person who has an AI task, I also have concern that these tasks is going to distribute to the person's computer, who's going to make sure that the privacy of my task, my job's also guaranteed. So there's a two-way concerns here. And in terms of the advantage of the decentralization, to me, there is a win-win situation here. You have a computer that you are using it on daily basis, but it could be a source of income, passive income for you. That's one thing. The other part for the AI builders or AI companies, the benefit is that they pay much less. In terms of the financial, for both of them, it makes sense. You earn, they pay less. So that's a kind of a win-win situation. But in terms of the concern you mentioned, before I get to the other philosophical and very critical aspects of decentralization, which is one of them human-centered AI part, is the concerns can be easily addressed, right, from a different perspective. For example, the way that we do address it, and we know that the well-known protocols in blockchain who are leveraging decentralized compute, they are following a similar paradigm in many cases. And what happens is that usually when you become a node in a network as part of a decentralized network, that environment is completely and purely isolated from your environment, from your computer. For example, in our case, we don't even have access to your hardware. We cannot have access to your hardware. Only computes that we have access is your CPU and your RAM. That's all we need, right? And you can handle actually these ones, for example, through the installer of the Windows or Mac OS to make sure that no kind of aspects of your computer or your data being exposed to this installer. It's similar to any other apps. We have a desktop app. When you install a desktop app, you know that how to make sure that not to get access to your data. The same here. But the other part actually is a bigger challenge for us. The other part is that the AI company, they are giving us their data. They want to run a very sensitive pipelines to extract information from the data, right? They don't want, when we distribute this data, when we distribute these pipelines, they don't want the users to see what's happening there. That's another component. And that's something that blockchain comes to play, and the cryptographic of machine learning comes to play. And that's actually what we are doing it now. So scientifically speaking, or theoretically speaking, at least we are considering quantum as well, but the pre-quantum era, there is no way you can decrypt the data that we send to your node and the pipeline that we send to your node being exposed to you. So you cannot see what's happening there, and they cannot see what you have. So it's going to be an isolated environment with something that you have no idea. The only thing that you see, oh, okay, 30% of my CPU is being used, 30% of my RAM is being used for some processing tasks. And you are doing that. So that's kind of two aspects that we doing, and it's actually based on our understanding of other protocols. It's actually very convenient by users because, well, if you install a desktop app, if you install an app on your computer, it's the same. We got the approval from Apple, we got approval from Microsoft to be able to install these nodes. So definitely the security is guaranteed and checked by them.
That's great. And I assume you're leveraging, from my information more than anything else, I assume you're leveraging zero key proof rollups in the network?
Not necessarily for all the specs, but zk proof is something that I can argue. We can discuss it through a podcast together, but I'm not an expert there. But I believe that at least for the type of the jobs that we are doing at the moment, zk proof is still in a very inefficient era that you cannot kind of have such proof and privacy level there. But there are other very interesting algorithms, particularly from distributed processing, which has been around for many years, that you can leverage. And then this is a similar concept. For example, when you send your data to Amazon Cloud, it's not in one place. It goes to different nodes, maybe in Southeast, right? So the question is that how we make sure that it's secured right? There is a guardian there? No, there are some encrypted algorithms involved as well to guarantee the security as well.
It's just so interesting getting into like how all of this works, and you've definitely done your research into making sure this is secure for everybody. What drives you? Like, what drives you? You've got this amazing AI that I honestly think is the way we should go. Why did you make it? What drives you? Why do you think this is the needed solution? Like, I now know that like it's needed, but why?
While you were asking a question, I was trying to think of one word that drives me on whatever I'm doing from the research to production. If I want to just use one word, accessibility. That's what drives me every day. I truly believe that accessibility of the power in tech, in research, in education is something that sometimes we take it for granted in some kind of part of the world. And this is something that the accessibility is not happening easy. Even if you look at let's say North America, in Canada, right? I'm sure that the accessibility of building an AI agent, it's not to everyone. But if we are moving toward an era that we call it agentic era, or I don't know, AGI, whatever we call it, the accessibility is a big component. And the accessibility is something that drives me. And it's not something about just, you know what? If you have money, you have accessibility. No, even if you have less money, it must be accessible at your capacity. I think that would describe my derivatives.
You just gave me chills, because since I've started using AI, I've deemed AI an accessibility tool for the neurodivergent, because it helps me break down social cues, social understanding to a point where like I can have these conversations without fear of anything anymore, because I've learned it's helped me figure out how I communicate with people. And even now, my business outside of podcasting is to go and find ways of integrating people using AI back into the internet, because for the past 30 years, we've had this internet that a lot of people understand, but there is a giant, like I'd say 30 to 50% chunk of people who still don't understand how it works, how to write an email, how to send a text message. Being out where I am, there's a lot of people who grew up in the age without technology, and now it's bridging the gap. And I find that AI has really helped me bridge that gap of, hey, we can do this. Like, we're not strapped to these mediums that you don't understand. You can be strapped to whatever medium you do understand. So that resonates a lot with me, accessibility.
That's interesting.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, the same for me. Well, I'm biased toward AI, downstream application and task, and I truly believe that a huge kind of eagerness, huge passion, people, and of course huge fear that people want to get involved because they think that they're left behind, and they just hear the stereotypical sentences that, oh, you know what, AI is taking over jobs, AI is doing that, AI is gonna be this. But if you make it accessible, they can be involved as maybe in different layers, as much as compute power. I'm a member of a community that build this model, and I get credit for that. Till the point that, okay, you know what, I have a data agent that gives me the signals on trading. And then higher level, I can build an AI agent that use these data agents to do trading for me. So these are all layers of AI, and there must be accessible to everyone. Everyone should have I don't like the piece of pie example, but it's truly a piece of pie example. You know what I mean here? From any aspect, intellectually, emotionally, everything, not just financially.
It becomes a question of humanity's kind of had this same framework for our entire existence, and now we're actually setting the precipice for a brand new framework that nobody understands. Even the people building it don't understand it, and that's the crazy part. It's like, hey, like, what is going to happen? And every AI researcher is like, I have no clue. We have no clue. And it's like, I get how that you want to spiral into negatives because of how our world is built, but anybody out there, like, this is the best, most prosperous time to get into this stuff because it truly is the what I'm gonna say is like one of the last booms of our probably generation before we're too old to actually get onto the next thing, or hopefully maybe we'll just exist forever. I don't know. I'm in the boat of if I have the opportunity to live forever, I'm going to do it. It just, I think we're going to experience the sci-fi experience that we've all wanted.
We are already started
Yeah,
experiencing. That's how I say it. I always now sometimes in my classes also I bring these examples. Not sure if you watched the movie Hair.
yeah,
That's something that in the layers of LLMs now we see that reality that you can actually use it with the same natural way that you are interacting. Of course, the validity of the advice and information is not as good as
yeah.
her, but you see that actually you can experience it, right? It's just a matter of time to become much more reliable on what it tells you and how it can affect you. I was reading a tweet. I know that is a bit off topic. One of these AI directors tweeted that, yeah, she went to the consulting session with her husband. And she noticed that in their conversation, both of them, they are referring to ChatGPT. You know what? ChatGPT said this about your behavior, that behavior you had. It's like, she's like, yeah, you know what? ChatGPT is becoming the therapist assistant now in our daily life.
I really do wish it wasn't ChatGPT, to be honest with you, because I don't like that everybody's using one agent. I use several agents. Like, I'm still not trusting of it. But then I hear Sam speak, and I'm like, I see his vision. I know he's wants it to be protected and wants it to help humanity more than hinder it. I just wish we could get away from like tying it to one tool. But I guess that's human nature. Like the reason we say Kleenex instead of tissue is because of the branding and that kind of thing. So get into your branding right now. The one thing that I do want to get into before we go anywhere else is when I started researching into human-centered AI, it really got me thinking about the singularity. And for those who don't know, the singularity is when humans and machine finally merge and we become just one entity. Um, do you think by us establishing a human centralized AI that we are more likely to be on the path of singularity then, as opposed to pushing against it?
That's a good question. It's very depends what you want to get out of singularity, right? So, for example, now looking at the pioneers or the ones who are ahead of AIs, right, including OpenAI, Google, or Meta, all these companies, right? They made this powerful over years of research, but they were the one who built the product, right? And if we ask that, do we have a powerful AI agent or AI conversation model? We can say yes, right? And that's something that similar things can happen for singularity. Maybe we get to the point that AI becomes as transparent to human as other humans, right? So we get to that point. But who's in power of this AI could be centralized. And that's something that I personally trying to running away from. You know what I mean? The same for AI stage that we are in. You pointed something very, very important, that you don't use one tool's AI tool. And the reason is that we see in research a lot that these LLMs, which is large language models behind ChatGPT or other AI tools, conversational AI tools that we are using, there are a lot of bias toward them, right? I'm not saying that any of these companies doing it intentionally, but if one day one of them they decide to tweak these models a bit to be more biased toward race, toward ethnicity, toward gender, or many other type of biases, right? They can They can do that, right? Because they are in power. They are the one who are building these models. For singularity, I believe the same. If we are talking about the singularity, the ones that we, as a normie, as a human, dreaming about, that must be decentralized. That must be. But could be, I can see a centralized singularity option on the table, and that
Yeah.
might happen too.
I think I would be in your boat. I'd be running away right away. At this point, I actually just reached out to a company who has the ability to stream to your device. So like stream an entire OS to your device. So this is essentially a stupid device now. And you, I wanted to talk to them how they do it in terms of could I do that for my computer? Because I have a superpower computer right here that could run AI for my phone for my own personal purposes. And if I could stream it to my phone, I'd be less worried about like my model being biased or wrong or things like that because I can fine tune it and have it as my own. Everybody needs their own AI.
There are solutions coming out. And of course, for example, for these conversational AI, there are a lot of them that you can actually run it on your computer as well,
Mm.
but they are not as attractive and practical as, for example, what ChatGPT offer, for example, or what Anthropic offers. And the reason is the part that I'm gonna talk later is the accessing to the real-time personalized information, right? Because once you have installed it, you can use it, but you find it very dumb, a dumb version of human that can talk like human, but the text or the answers are very idiotic,
Nonsensical. Yeah.
nonsensical. And to make sense out of it, make it practical, you need to plug some signals from real world with respect to your question. When you ask that, okay, what's happening in AI in last 3 hours? These models themselves cannot answer this. They have to be connected somehow, I don't know, maybe social media to some places, process this data, and then they have the food for thoughts. Then they can give you the better answer. But I think we are getting there as well. There are
I honestly, yeah. Within the next 5 years, I don't see us having any limits to what we can build where. It's really weird because for years and years everybody's like, oh, it's gonna be 10 and 15 years. Like, no. Our timelines are going from years to months. Like it's ridiculous.
To be honest, I cannot even think for 5 years. I don't even a year from now
Right?
will be a different world.
I remember when I started my channel, I couldn't build a website with AI. And 4 months later, you can't even tell I didn't build a website with AI. It's just insane. So I did want to get into, so talking to the decentralization, I did want to get into Imad's concept of tokens for benefiting humanity. He kind of speaks into like how open source and how we're going to have UBI, right? We're going to end up with some sort of UBI when AI revolution takes over, and people, the vast majority will have job loss because you're talking labor where we're going to have robots being able to do the. It's not going to come. Well, it'll come fast for everybody, but it will wipe out a lot of physical labor jobs and things that aren't really needed. But his whole concept is building around context tokens. So essentially, everybody gets a certain amount of tokens for compute power, and they can sell those tokens or use those tokens to build things. I'm not. I know I'm not doing it justice, but I think it's kind of a good idea. Is instead of monetary value, we're attaching it to like compute power. Would be a better thing for UBI. I think was his goal.
Mm.
Anyways, it's in the latest Moonshots podcast, but it just echoes the thoughts of decentralization, how we're going to deal with it, and I don't want to be I don't want to sugarcoat this for anybody. There's going to be so much job loss, but it's all about learning who you are and how you leverage your skills. There will be a place for you. You just got to figure it out.
That's actually very interesting. I was in a panel a couple of months ago. They the similar discussion came up in terms of, okay, what's going to happen to jobs, right? Do you think, when I'm just asking this question, then I tell you my answer. How many years we have a job called podcaster?
I think we always will.
No, I
Um,
mean in the past. When did it started
oh,
the true meaning of, you can have a
yeah.
job as being a podcaster. If you
This has
look
been
at it,
about 10.
maybe now that's what happens, right? Before that, there were different type of jobs. That's something that I truly believe that that's part of the humanity that evolves, right? There were maybe different versions of people asking questions and disseminating this valuable information to some audience, maybe through newspaper, maybe before that in Sapiens, on the walls of the caves. Somehow, somewhere, this nature was, but now it become this aspect, right? So
Yeah,
of course, now maybe writing a column in an article in a paper article is not as attractive than being a podcaster. You know what I mean? Maybe some jobs are now, we don't even have them. So in terms of the job loss, this is something that maybe I'm a bit optimistic
yeah,
person, being then pessimistic. I truly believe that there are many new jobs are coming, many new jobs that we
yeah,
never had them before, and they will be kind of the AI powered version of what you are doing in a different way. For example, now in the concept of decentralization, there is a job called verifier, right? We never had
yeah,
such jobs. Even in Web2, we don't have such people. But verifiers, for example, if you look at Bitansers, there are people, they are making good money. And they are actually, their job is to do some verifications of some tasks in an automatic way, but very trustable, right? They're kind of auditors, let's say. So I believe that there are many different jobs are coming, while many jobs are being deprecated or being lost. But as you mentioned, that's the most important part. You have to be updated. You have to be open. My students ask me now these days, what skills should we learn to make sure that we have a job after graduation, right? My first advice is that be open. You don't set your mindset on this, okay, I want to be a programmer. No, maybe you become a vibe coder or something else, right? So
yeah.
be open to the learning and learn how to learn. That's all
Yes.
you need, and then you can find a job.
I laugh because I was just thinking back. A software developer, that job didn't exist before I was alive. Like I'm just thinking about it, and then now I don't even code. I vibe code everything.
Yeah.
And another year from now, it won't even be vibe coding. It'll just be this is the application I want to go build it. To the point where I don't even have to minutely make sure everything's okay. But yeah, it's just upgrading the jobs, and I think of the jobs that are going to be the greatest are exploratory science, biology. Think of Star Trek is literally our dream, our grand ambition. If I'm not mistaken, like if
Mhm.
we peel back every single person who's built tech, who's worked in tech, and you say what's your defining purpose, and it's Star Trek, right? Like that's what got them going. These ideas that came from when we didn't even have we had the base level of this technology. We had something less than our bones to get to the moon, and now like we couldn't even think of a device that runs on that little of a compute, right?
True, true.
So it's just a matter of figuring out where you want to be, and yeah, learn how to learn. That's a big one. I think that's why I'm doing so well is because I just like to learn things. I love information. I love to understand why, how. I used to break things apart and put them back together.
Exactly.
You're gonna
And
have, yeah,
that's kind of where you are now, right? If you look at the whole journey you had, the same for me at some level. I see that when I learn how to learn, I started with different kind of jobs. I was a Java programmer at sometimes during my undergrad in a company, and then how I got here, I was just open. Oh, that's cool. Let's see the curiosity, right? Let's see what it is. Let's see that if there is something fits me. Otherwise, maybe I was in the same kind of agenda or kind of jobs that I was. So being open, it's very important, particularly in this period of time, because we don't know what jobs survive. We don't know what new jobs will come out. So you have to learn, you have to see what's happening, you have to follow the kind of trends and see that where it fits you in the new paradigm. That's all matters.
It's funny because I feel like a lot of people go out in the world to feel like they mean something. And this is literally the time to start finding out your meaning. Because everybody's meaning is going to change. I think content is going to be big. So just learning how to tell a story is a good case. Some examples of how we can build decentralized solutions more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, particularly on AI, I assume you're talking about.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so though there are different angles, right? To me, there can be a mapping from the whole AI ecosystems, which is a centralized version, to the decentralized version. That's one way. The other way is that we look at the decentralized AI as a completely new paradigm, right? But there are some major components being common between centralized and decentralized. So
Yes.
if I want to tell you what's happening in AI in very abstract way, there are specific components. There is a data collections that is always happening. So we are generating a lot of data. This data needs to be collected, right? And of course, the data, you know that they are full of noises. Let's take social media, Twitter as one example. So there are a huge amount of data that you can collect, right? And this collection can happen in a decentralized way. What does that mean? It means that instead of there is one place that you go and get the information of social media and you give your data to social media, it should belong to you, theoretically speaking and ethically speaking. We are the customers of Instagram, right? Instagram is not for free. We are the customer. We are generating the source of revenue for them, which is our data, which is our image, which is our comment, all the interactions. So now this can happen in a way that the data that you're generating as a human belongs to you. And if someone wants to use it, you should get paid for that. That's called centralized data layer. Now, for example, Vana is a very interesting protocol that they are collecting decentralized data collection for personal data, for example, Instagram or others. Of course, there are decentralized social media, decentralized all the web services that we have that can be the source of the data. But what matters is that your data belongs to you when it comes to decentralization. Then after the data collection, the big component, which is a huge bottleneck in many cases, is processing this data, cleaning this data, call it contextualizing this data. So these raw data, in order to use it for AI, they need to be cleaned, processed, filtered, right? That part is a decentralized data management, decentralized processing. At the moment, it happens centralized. For example, Databricks is a good example of centralized data management, but this can happen decentralized way as well. What does that mean? The way that this data processed and attributed and being used, you can be transparent, know that how your data are being leveraged during these processes. Then after processing, we get to 2 points. One is that training a model, building an AI model, which nowadays actually got super centralized. Now there are just big companies, OpenAI, I don't know, Anthropic, Meta can build these huge models because no one can afford building these models, right? And that's centralized training. Now that we have decentralized training, for example, protocols like Jensen, they are doing decentralized training. So what they do, they use personalized GPUs to train this model to make everyone, even me, I can train a model, build a model. Then it comes to use of this model, which one version is AI agent. The other one, use it for prediction, many others. It's called inference or kind of execution. That inference, again, centralized one, AWS gives you a lot of option on that, all these clouds. There are decentralized version now. That Ritual is one of them, AI agent platforms, for example, Umio, which are doing a very interesting job there. I know about them. Is one of them. Virtuals, these are doing decentralized agent or agent platforms. So as you see, each of components that they are centralized, now they are being mapped to decentralized. And there are different protocols. For example, for me personally, I'm very interested in the process management of these raw data all around the world. These models needs them. AI agent needs this process clean data. How we make it decentralized? But there are different protocols, and each of these components are being built. And when it comes to decentralized concept, it means that community involved. It means that it's built for community from community. That's a big component of decentralization.
With consensus, that's the biggest thing. It needs consensus. You kind of talked into tech there, but I wasn't quite aware of it. I'm equating it to DSPY. You know what that is? Yeah,
The on-chain data.
yeah, the on-chain data.
Yeah.
I hear terms and things all the time. Like I'm constantly in the AI feed, so things come up and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and then I'm trying to plug around and play with it. I feel like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I know what you mean. One thing that, sorry, just mention this part. I map the centralized world to decentralized, but the beauty of Web3 itself is that if there is a data there, if there is a process happen there, it's already decentralized. For example, DXDY, there are a lot of on-chain data there, right? And they are already decentralized. So everyone knows that what data I generated, I own them, what are my transactions, everything's.
We're starting to go the right way. And Blue Sky, I actually caught the South by Southwest and that they built the Bitcoin open protocol that I hope everybody starts using in the future. Because yeah, this will actually I can talk about the two apps that I know of that are doing that right now, which is Blue Sky and there's a new Instagram called Own, where they're giving you crypto for your content. So you're essentially you can monetize your content through them instead, which is interesting. Yeah. So I just want to give the last 10 minutes to you, your company, anything you'd like to bring up before we go up.
Sure. Where should I start?
Wherever you feel most comfortable, just yeah.
So I think with all I discussed so far, understanding of my philosophy, accessibility, right, and the human-centered component of AI, and how we can democratize and decentralize the power and accessibility, right? So this particular project, Heisenberg Network, was built based on the similar philosophy. So what we have in mind is that we are getting into an era that soon enough, every person can build an AI agent, right? Either a personal assistant, it could be a business. To me, that's how I see it. The new SaaS is coming, and the new SaaS is agent as a service. And the question is that how this work and what are the bottlenecks? So one aspect is that these days we don't have the problem with the raw data. There is a huge amount of data out there. And these days we don't have the problem with the models. Actually, their models are really good. So we are getting into a very interesting era that there is a huge amount of data out there. There are a lot of pre-trained models in Hugging Face that you can use to build your AI agents. There are many agent launchpads, right? Umio or Virtuals or Eliza, they enable you to build an AI agent to do trading for you, right? There is one missing part. Each AI agent is a focused entity. It wants to do some, for example, particular task, maybe an AI agent to become a social media account or an AI agent to become a trader. Out of this huge amount of data, they need to connect to the data that matters most for them. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. That's the situation. So at the moment, if you need to extract that needle, find that needle, to pass it to your agent, you have to do a lot of development. And you have to do it centralized. Approximately, it's cost companies $1 million to do this. But the companies who have this, they can do this. But imagine down the road, that's not the case, right? So what we are building basically is a decentralized infrastructure to build pipelines to get the information you need for your AI agent. How this happen and how we do it. First of all, we assume that the AI agent builders, they do not want to build pipelines because it's too much trouble. So we have a component, we call it prompt to process, prompt to pipeline. You say what you need. Your AI agent can come to our system, say that, okay, you know what? I want a pipeline to monitor Twitter and gives me the financial signal on these tokens every 3 hours as a prompt. Then we build the infrastructure for that to address that prompt to do the job. Okay, so no development for them, zero development almost for the AI builders. But the beauty of this is that we want to keep the cost down, right? That's where the community comes into play as well. These pipelines that we build out of the prompt, they will be CPU intensive. AI is all about GPU. We are in CPU game. We truly believe that CPU has a power that is not being leveraged for AI ecosystem, and that's what we are doing. You connect to our network, you share your CPU with us. Once we have your CPU, we use your CPU to run these pipelines, to fetch the data and extract what matters for the AI agent. Okay, and that's kind of what we are building, a no-code, affordable context generation, and context is what AI agent needs to do a job. That's a bit of
impressive. And you kind of answered the question of why CPU over GPU. Do you not? I'm interested. This is a conversation for another time because this is purely like a engineer standpoint, like how you're leveraging the CPU over the GPU. Another topic, not for our audience here, but can you just tell our audience where to find you? I'll make sure everything's in the description below, and we'll take it from there.
Sure, of course. I'm in Toronto. If you find me, if you want to find me in person. But in terms of, I think one of the best places for me is Twitter and LinkedIn. My Twitter account and LinkedIn will be in the comments, as well as the company, right? Heisenberg Network, the Twitter is Heisenberg Net, and the website is heisenberg.so. It gives you a lot of information, depends on how you want to get involved. If you are an AI agent, you need context, you can get involved. If you have a CPU that you want to use it as a passive income, right? And earn, that's another role you can play and join our network.
Definitely interested in that, and I already filled in the wait list to be on for a note because that's awesome. Something I would love. Anyways, for my audience out there, just remember to subscribe, comment, and like. Anything you'd like to know about this, please ask in the comments and I'll get to them. And honestly, I hope you enjoyed this conversation because I did, and hopefully you can have Mori back another time to discuss more. And for anybody out there, just stay weird.
Thank you so much for having me.